What's up, fighters? Hank here, coming at you today with a little bit of Fightin 101. And I'm going to be going over how to hold a sword, as well as the different parts of the sword. I've been coaching HEMA for a while now. And one of the questions people have asked me over the years is, Hank, how does one hold the blade? And so I say, like this. But it's much easier to use a sword when you're holding it by the handle. So we're going to start there. Now, when you're holding the sword, there are two main grips you're going to use. One is called the handshake grip, and the other one is called the thumb grip. At times, you might take a reverse grip or kind of flip your hands or do something different. These are the two main grips that you're going to be using throughout most of your fencing. So we're going in like a handshake. We're going to grab that sword about ½ an inch below the crossguard. And now I don't want my hand straight up and down. I want to kind of angle those knuckles forward so they're in line with my forearm here. This is going to give me better structure to absorb any blows. If I have this straight up and down, a lot of that force is likely to go into my wrist and might even kick up to my elbow. And you're also going to get a little bit more range with this lined up here and those knuckles kind of pointed forward. And then I like to have that handle going kind of angled up through the hand in between the meaty part of my palm and my knuckles. And then I'm going to kind of just wrap those fingers around nice and loose. Thumb kind of be on the edge here, or you can kind of put it up the flat. So nice, just loose, supple grip there. And then the bottom hand, similar. You got that handle angled forward. My bottom hand gonna come in between the meaty part of my palm and my knuckles. And then depending on kind of what's going on, your bottom hand can move around. Starting out, I like to just kind of have it resting on the pommel here. And just nice kind of supple grip. We want to make sure that we're not squeezing too tight here. Your hands or forearms or shoulders get really tired and you've just been standing there holding the sword, kind of check, make sure that you're not overly squeezing on that handle. A lot of the times when we're holding the sword, it's more about balance than kind of staying super tight and rigid. So one way you can kind of get a feel for this is if we take our top hand, nice supple grip, and you're going to let go with your bottom hand. And you'll notice that sword is going to tip forward. It's just going to fall forward. So nice relaxed grip with that top hand, let go. Sword falls forward. So all we need to do, take that bottom hand and stop the sword from tipping forward. So just nice supple grip with the top hand. Take the bottom hand out. The sword's going to tip forward. Nice relaxed grip. Let go. It's going to tip. So all we need to do with our bottom hand is just stop this sword from tipping forward. Nice and relaxed. Nice and relaxed. Our chest is up. The weight is carried in our lats and in our back. So we can just have the sword out in front of us. Nice and relaxed. We're not burning too much energy, squeezing super tight, trying to hold this here with our arm muscles. Keep those elbows tight, supple grip, and you just want to balance this. You just want to balance the sword in your hand. We don't need to hold it out here all rigid like. All right, the thumb grip. So for the thumb grip, we're going to start in a handshake grip, and then we're just going to rotate the sword and bring our thumb up onto the crossguard. All right, so starting in that nice handshake grip, good supple grip, not overly tight. We're just going to rotate our sword a little bit and we're bringing our thumb up. I like to put the crease of my thumb on the crossguard there. You can shoot your thumb all the way up the shield here, but one thing is if your thumb's way up there and you take a lot of force on that sword, that could be translated down into your thumb. And speaking from experience, it's tough to stop a big, strong strike with just your thumb. It doesn't feel good. I would not recommend it. So if you bring your thumb and kind of get the crease of your thumb down on the crossguard, you still get all the advantages from the thumb grip without exposing your thumb to that danger. And so now from here, we can take a little bit of a looser thumb grip or a tighter thumb grip depending on what's going on. So what I mean by that is a looser thumb grip, kind of if you're up in an ox here, I just have to balance my crossguard on my thumb, and my backhand is just stopping that sword from tipping out. So as I talked about earlier, we really just need to kind of find that balance. We don't need to be squeezing really tight. And in fact, you don't want to here. If I had my hand wrapped around super tight, it's going to put my elbow in a bad spot. So I'm going to keep this supple grip, make sure my structure is good, and I'm maintaining this balance in my sword. For a tighter thumb grip, that's kind of more if you're at the end of his workout, end of a shield how. And so with that, you're going to take more of kind of a Spider-Man grip. You think about when Spider-Man shoots his web out, and we're driving that palm forward, that's going to give you the structure you're looking for. You have that thumb grip, and we're driving that hand forward. So we're keeping that palm pressed out. My thumb is still kind of on that cross guard there, but, and there it is on the other side. Bam, bam, bam. You have that palm pressed out, just kind of pinching with your fingers. We're not wrapped around. The handshake grip and the thumb grip allow you to use your sword in various ways. Certain techniques call for striking with a certain edge of the sword. By switching between these grips, you're able to perform these various techniques. Now that we know how to hold the sword, what are the different parts of the sword? We're going to go over two different swords used in this hobby, blunts and fetters. So blunt, pretty much a blunt sword, looks like a real sword. The edges are just rounded, the tip's rounded to make it a little bit safer. They're still not very safe and not used for sparring too often. And then we have fetters, which is short for fetterschwert, which translates to feather sword, which is based off of a historical training tool that was supposed to simulate a long sword. Now, these two swords have a lot of similarities. They both have blades, obviously. They're going to have cross guards. The cross guard on a fetter is usually going to be a little bit more rounded. Not all of them, but you're more likely to see it kind of rounded off to make it a little bit safer. They're both going to have handles and pommels. Pommels are those metal balls at the bottom of the sword where you kind of rest in that bottom hand. Now, the difference is, one, the tip of a blunt sword is going to be more pointy. It might be rounded off a little bit to make it safer, but they're not super safe to thrust with. You can still kind of put that through something. Whereas with a fetter, they're going to round that tip over or spatulate it to make that surface area wider, make it bigger, so it's a little bit safer to thrust with. And another thing, a fetter is going to be a little more flexible. That blade is going to bend easier, so when you do thrust, it should be a little bit safer. And one of the biggest things you'll kind of notice is fetters have what's called a schild, which translates to shield. So this will help protect your hand a little bit. And another thing it does is it brings the mass of the sword closer to the crossguard, so it's not going to hit as hard. This is an example of a blunt longsword. So it looks pretty much like a sword. That tip is a little bit rounded. These edges are going to be blunt. The sword itself is a bit stiffer generally, but otherwise it's going to look and handle just like a sword. And this is an example of a fetter. So we have that rounded tip at the top. These edges are going to be a little bit wider than the blunt longsword. The blade itself is going to be more flexible. We have the schild down here at the bottom to kind of help protect your hand and bring that mass a little bit closer to the crossguard so the sword doesn't hit as hard. Okay, so a couple conceptual things with the sword we need to talk about. We have the strong and the weak. So you have the weak, roughly about the top third of the sword, strong, about the bottom third of the sword. What this is referring to is if you think about the sword as a long lever, the closer that lever is to you, the easier it is for you to put force into it. The further away, the tougher it is. So when the swords are in contact, if you meet in roughly the same part of the sword, you're going to be in an even or what's called a neutral bind. If you can get the bottom third of your sword on the top third of their sword, your strong is going to be on their weak, and you have an advantage in the bind. Vice versa, if your weak is on their strong, it's going to be easy for them to move you around, and you're in a bad spot. All right, so the last thing we're going to go over is the long edge or true edge and short edge or false edge. So when you're reading through the German manuals, certain techniques call for certain edges to be used. And according to Meyer, the edge that faces out from our knuckles is going to be that long or true edge, and that edge that faces towards the webbing or kind of the back of the hand is going to be the false or short edge. This might get a little confusing as you're spinning your sword around. Generally, if I'm not too sure, I'll just go back to the last hand position where it kind of made sense to me and then use that as the corresponding edge. So just kind of play around with these grips, try different things out, have fun. Fantastic. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that and you learned something. If you have any questions, please let me know down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Now get out there and practice.